Hello and Allah Pa once again. Times is 6:39. Today is 18th Saturday of the month of May of 2012. I am Abbas Temori, trying to explain this magnificent eternal Mathnavi of Baha'u'llah. It is good to, if you just joined this, it is good to hear that introductions in the very beginning, a little bit of a Persian poetry. We were explaining in the last two videos about this free will of God and the free will of man and the laws of God, contracting with it and whatnot. In these other 5 lines, Baha'u'llah again brings up questions in the mind of the inquisitive mind of his followers, that based on what he says, one might think then why God can't do certain things. Why wouldn't he do that? And now I'm going to explain it and then ask these questions on your behalf or behalf of anybody who has objection to God. He says, ای ز مهرت ذره خورشیدی شود. ای او ز from. Mehr means love in Persian. In Arabic it's ishq, mostly used as ishq, but mehr means really love. In Persian, it's a Persian word. Mehrat te is a pronoun, means oh, from your love, zarre, atom, dust, very tiny. Khorshidi shavad. Eyes a khorshid, a sun becomes. Oh, from your love, an atom becomes a sun. Way here means the aleph in the middle is omitted. In fact, it should be va-a, and o. So way means and o. And o, ze, from qahrat. Qahr as opposed to mehr, which makes them rhyme. Qahr means wrath and anger of God, when he does not want to reconcile, irreconcilable situation. That is qahr. God says no. He does not want to reconcile. He says, from your irreconcilability, or from your sense of wrath. Shir osfuri bovad. Shir means the lion. Osfur is Arabic for sparrow. Persian they say gonjeshk. Arabic says osfur. He says, and from your wrath, a lion would be a sparrow. This is a reference to certain stories. That is not in Quran, but it could be in the book of Rumi or other writers. I haven't found anything, and I don't know the reference. But there must be a story in which a lion turns, into a osfur, which means a sparrow, implying that the biggest lion, that is out there, if you cannot reconcile with him and you have shown your wrath against him, it would be nothing but a sparrow, indicative of the power of God, how he can turn a lion into a sparrow, and how it can turn a zarreh, which means an atom, into a sun. Here says what you can do to God, he says. From your love and your wrath, these things can happen in a very extreme point. Now he says to him, to God, he says, Baha'u'llah, barvazide, بادها از هر کنار, is blowing. بروزیده is blowing. بادها, the winds, as from her every side, every directions. The wind is blowing from every direction, he says. مانده شمعت در میان ای کردگار. Your candle, شمعت means your candle, remained in the middle, in the midst of the wind. Oh, کردگار. کردگار, خداوندگار, پروردگار, these are all meaning God. But Persians are blessed because they have their own ancient word for God in many, many ways, but also the Arabic name. We say to God Allah, we can say Rab, you can say Lord, but we also have Parvardegar and Kerdegar and Khudavandegar, and one of them is this, Kerdegar, the doer, the divine doer, Kerdegar. So he says to him, since an atom from your love can turn into a sun, and a lion can turn into a sparrow because of your wrath, so God, you should know, the wind is blowing from every direction, and amidst them, your candle, which is him, has remained in the middle. That means they're blowing. There's such a wind, big winds for a candle, they'll put him off. Extinguished. That's what he says. I'm getting extinguished, God, he says. Then again, back to the first line, he says to God, Gar to khawahi, if you want. Gar means agar, a is fallen, omitted. Gar, if, to you khahi, want. Ab, water. Atash mi shavad. Atash means fire. Persians say atash, Arab they say nar. So if you want, the water turns into fire. Var nakhahi, var means va agar. See, the aleph and the ge is fallen. This is fallen, just the re, var, va agar. And if you nakhahi, and comes in the front of khahi, it makes it negative. And if you don't want the fire, atash on them, at that moment, befsurat, gets extinguished. It says to God, you have such an extreme power. If you want, the water turns into the fire. And if you don't want, the fire just gets shut down. I found a couple of lines, because I knew these similar lines. I read it once upon a time in the Rumis. And I Googled it and I found these lines. I didn't know where it was. He has a line like this, گر تو خواهی آتشا به خوش شود ور نخواهی آب هم آتش شود. This is what Rumi says. If you want, the fire becomes the drinkable water. And if you don't want, the water also can turn into fire. There's such a line, from him. Again, has another line I've written here. Bad atash mi shavad az amr haq. The wind turns into fire from the command of God. So, this is a couple of lines from Rumi. Baha'u'llah has not copied that, but he might have read those, and they come into the God's word. It can. It happens lots of time. So similar to these lines, we have that in Rumi. If you want, گر تو خواهی آب آتش می شود. If you want, the water turns into fire. But if you don't want, the fire shall be extinguished at that time. Again, goes to the power of God. He says, ای ز حکمت دیو گردد همچو هور. Oh, from your command. Hukm means command. Hukmat, your command. Div, the devil, the demon. Gardad becomes hamcho, like hur. Hur, H-O-R, hur, means the angel of God. They are the hur Huriye and Hur. Hur means female, Huriye means male, male and female angel in the heaven. That in Islam it is that when the believers they die, faithfuls, they get Hur and Huriye as their companion. So he says, oh, from your order, from your command, the demon turns into angel. وَإِذَا أَمْرَتْ بَرْدَمَتْ از نار نور. And and from your amr, command. Hukm means order and command, so as amr. But amr in the Baha'i faith is used as the cause of God. The fate of God is called amr. وَإِذَا أَمْرَتْ, and from your command, bardamat, comes out, blooms, as nar nur, from the fire, the light. Light comes from the fire. So, let me say the last line too, because it's all in the same theme. Again he says, گر تو خواهی, if you want, گر if to you خواهی want, bad wind chun like دهنی شود, becomes like an oil. In a contrast, because the wind comes and extinguishes the flame of the candle. But he says this wind that can extinguish the fire, it can become the oil and let the candle be enlightened, and like putting it off. That's an opposite thing. برفزاید روح و هم نوری بود. It will add, the spirit will become bigger. It will add to the soul, to the ruh, to the spirit. هم نوری بود. برفزاید روح. Ruh becomes bigger. هم نوری بود. And also becomes a light. Not all the spirits are light. Some of them are light. Here it means the spirit that is not faithful, that doesn't believe in God, that doesn't believe in righteousness, can become a light. Now all of these things is raising these questions. Baha'u'llah, who ordinarily speaking is a human being like you and I, but he's chosen by God, then it becomes the manifestation of God. Even have to discuss about that. He's just born like that. Let me put it this way. So, but when we look at him, as he says, I am like you, a human, but I'm the manifestation of God. I'm born to become him. Prophets are like the sugar cane. The universe is like a sugar cane. Every 20 years, sugar cane gives a flower. Every 1,000 years, humanity gives a flower, gives a fruit, That is the prophets of God. So, this brings up the question, begs the questions. Prophet of God, manifestation of God, Baha'u'llah, has says to God, nothing is impossible for you. You can turn things around. Hasn't Baha'u'llah complained a lot? A lot of time he has, from transgressions of the mankind, from lack of their understanding, from so many bad things they do to themselves. Why wouldn't God do it then? Baha'u'llah says you can, if you want to. Why doesn't God do it then? He's telling him, Azal is bothering me, this big ark covenant breaker, but you can change him around, God. Why don't you do it? Why doesn't God do it? This brings another subject into the fundamentals of the philosophy of the Baha'i faith. Let's go back to some of the interpretations of the Abdu'l-Baha in some answered questions. We as a Baha'i, we do not believe God engage in any action. In fact, the creation is not one of the actions of God. Abdu'l-Baha says creation is the quality of God. It is what God is. I've said this before. It's like an apple. Apple is round, almost. Apple has a taste, sour or sweet. Apple has a weight. An apple without weight and shape doesn't exist. So the taste of apple, it's the very nature of the apple. If you take that away, the shape away, weight away, then there's no apple. Baha'u'llah's creation comes with God, sort of like a comet that has a tail. The creation is a tail of God. Abdu'l-Baha says you cannot imagine a creator without creation. It's impossible. If you bring that up and say that, oh, no, God created, especially ed, when you add it to the verb, then you put God into time zone. You're saying that there are things that God didn't do and then did it after. Then there is a first and last for God. Then God engaged in action. Action takes time. So God does not do those things at all. What all these things means is that in the very nature that God has created, in the very creations of the entire universe, as you know, and when you die, the one that you do not know, everything is embedded in it. It's an automatic case. Abdu'l-Baha again says that. He says, well, can we make this man again? He says, yes, if all the elements are gathered together that create the man, it will become a man. He says, if there's a lamp, and there is a wick, and there's the oil, and there's a formula to put it together, of course a lamp will come back again. So, the entire universe in the Baha'i faith is made out of matter and formulas. Out of matters and possibilities. Possibilities are the unknown part, invisible part of the nature. That is nature. And matters are the visible. For everything that exists, there is a formula. You can analyze a tree from top to the bottom and record it all in the book. That would be the spirit of that tree, which if it is correct, one can go and assemble all the matter together in the same way another tree will come back. So for a tree to become a tree, a possibility is required and a matter required. In this universe, everything is out of matter and formula. If you want water, first has to be a formula in which you have to put two hydrogen with an oxygen together. That's the formula, invisible, and then you will get the matter if you put it together. So this is what it means, that in the nature of God, and in the possibilities of God, everything is there. Yes, he can turn a lion to become so afraid, so nothing, like a sparrow. He can take a fire into the water. All that is possible, based on the formulas. Sun is the fire. In earth turns into light. Get closer, turns into fire. So everything is relative, you see. Relative to the object and the subject, things turns around. It could be bad because it's not suitable to us, or it could be good because it's suitable to us. Bad and good is relative to who we are. So, based on this, God says all of this is possible. Baha'u'llah says these are the possibilities with the nature and the creation of God. But when it comes to mankind, he has given him the willpower. Based on his contract with mankind, with himself really, He will not and cannot interfere in the will of man. Will is what definitely the most subtle things of all creations that God has given of himself to mankind. Try to make this little boy, this little child to understand his begetter, his father. Because this father is billion and trillion years old and the child is just born. He would not understand. The father, God knows, not in this life and not in the life to come. It's very difficult for him to understand. But he has made a way that by the willpower he could. If he wills into it, he can. Yes, if the arch-enemy of Baha'u'llah, which was Azal, if he would decide overnight to stop his transgression against Baha'u'llah, he could. All of a sudden, this demon could turn into an angel. Baha'u'llah says that is possible. The door is not closed. This is what it means. That you can do it. Why it is him? Because there's no other God, there's no other, comparison between God. So it is him. Everything in the nature is as if he's doing it. So in it, these possibilities are there. That the worst man in the planet tomorrow can change by decisions in a second, and I'm going to turn around and do the right things, as some people have done in the history. Or other way around. That some of the great people made a decision to just be a bad person. It's possible, this is. But thinking that God actually can change something in the middle of the way, that is not the way it works. God cannot interfere in time, does not associate with time. Where he is, there's no time. It's much like you open a webcam, you're in Canada and your father is in Iran on the webcam, and you say, "Hey Daddy," and he says, "Hi son, how are you?" And you say, "Thank you, God, Daddy." Daddy's your father, no doubt. He's talking to you. There's not a shred of doubt that it is him to you. But you ask him, "Daddy, I'm short on money. Can you give me $5? He says, "Son, I am in TV, I'm in the computer. I can't give you money through the computer. I want now." So I can't do it. Then how would he do it? He has to call somebody in Canada that has the money to come and give you the money. This is how, when people pray to God, their prayer becomes like an application, just like a resume. It sits there till somebody comes that is interested in that contract. They'll take him. I'm divorced. I'm outside of my house. And there's a Lisa who always wanting to have a right man. And I don't have anybody. Her application is there, passes by there, I am there, just like primordial soup. Oxygen turns, to the oxygen, to the hydrogen, together they create water. A relationship starts. Because there was two needs that they matched. So this application can go to God, especially when it's material-wise. It has to happen that somebody hears it and somebody responds to it. Like I would want right now close to $10 million, not for myself. I would put it on the website so everyone knows at every second where this money is going. Because if I take a penny from it, even 1 penny, I might give it to others, but myself, if I take a penny of it, I might die. It is absolutely like a poison to me. I have enough money for myself to live the rest of my life. But I need a minimum $10 million. Why? Because I want to start a huge project in Canada. God hears this, it's okay. So you want to do something for Earth, something for the country, Canada? Sure. Well, somebody has to agree with you, a boss. I'm not just going to push people around. Somebody has to agree with you. Now my need is put there as an application. Somebody among you, thousands of people, some old lady, some man, he's trying to see what should I do with my money, give it to the Humane Society. He happens to hear my video and says, you know what, I like this guy. I'm going to spend the money on him, let me see what happens. So, if something like that comes, then something is fused and I go back and I do what I want to do. If it doesn't come, God will not do it. Why? Is because it is going to be done for people. Perhaps people have to hire me, isn't it? If they don't hire me, God is not going to push and impose me upon them. They could just say these words. So you say, what happens then? Nothing. I die. Next elder of God comes, and people hear this thing a lot more, and their discernment and insight grows up. They give the money to him, and he knows what I want. He may not be as smart as I am, but he has capacity that I don't have. He's a man of action. I'm more a man of, explaining things. He might come in and get this go on. These kind of things, a revelation of God is like a Japanese mortgage. It takes few generations for it to get paid off and get completed. Bob comes in, says certain things, then Baha'u'llah comes, Abdu'l-Baha, Shobi comes, Universal comes. Now the elders show up one by one, and then one of them brings the ideology, and the next one, brings the other parts, and so on and so forth. So, yes, I can ask God again. Of course, we can give the money and whatnot. If I ask him, God, can I give any through the lottery tickets? God says, you might well do, but I'm not interfering in it. Because if I do, then I imposed upon you something of my will. I only can tell you what I want. I'm not going to push people around, God says. Very civilized God. I cannot push around because I promise to have willpower, and I have willpower. So we're the same in a way. You're too small, I'm very big, so I'm not going to use my will of power and take away your will from you. So you then do not have that experience of getting things done by your willpower, as a result of which you gain a spiritual power. I will have to cut off that opportunity from you to understand what it takes to do something. Because if I give it to you, it's like these millionaire boys. They get millions of dollars inherited by their parents. Usually that's the case. They don't appreciate it, and the money even works against them. It is the same way. God says money is there in the nature. All of it. You're going to have to go and do it. Okay, then the question comes that, should I use measures, huge measures, that I make the money? One guy, a Persian guy, he has a newspaper in Toronto. He told me, Abbas, your poetry is as good as Rumi's. There's one problem with it. Wherever you say Baha, you change Baha and say Khoda. Perfectly rhymes. Khoda and Baha. Baha means Baha'u'llah. Khoda means God. It says if you just change Baha to Khoda, I will personally invest money on you. We will call you like a new Rumi and Maulana, our, guardians, our Lord, and our people around. We will sell this all around in Toronto and other places. We're going to get huge money, he says. And it's not vicious, he says. He says, now you have power, because you got the money. Now you can teach the Baha'i faith the way you want after. So, I'm not asking you to do anything wrong, he says. I told him, yeah, I see. If Jesus Christ, good that he didn't come to Canada, because if it was to Canada, guys like you will tell him that, hey, such a speaker like you, why can't you come and sell some vacuum cleaner for us? You become millionaire, Jesus, and then you can do things. He says, I don't understand. I told him, I know you don't understand. What you don't understand is this. The person who is capable to write this poetry, as you yourself say, this is the greatest poems of all, such person cannot lie, mister. So he can't scheme it. It's not a scam that I wrote this poetry at age 18 and 20. That is, I said, the problem. A bad man is not capable of revealing these things. These are revelations. And if he's good, then he's not going to go into your scheme, I said. I understand, I said, your situation, but you like to have a political approach towards the Baha'i faith. Many of the Baha'is, they take the spiritual idea of the Baha'i faith and they treat it and they want to put it on the top in a matter of a politics. Machiavellism, The ends justifies the means. I said no. As far as I know, from Adam to Baha'u'llah, none of them would engage in this kind of things. It's just these two, they don't go together. If you think I'm so honest and I'm so great and I'm such a divine and this and that, well, then that thing cannot go with scamming and scheming against people. He said, no, people, they really honestly need it. Of course they can understand the word Baha in the beginning, but later on they do. I said, stop it, 150 years, 2,000 people have died, and you're talking about Iranian, not even foreigners and Canadians. They all know about Baha'i faith. How long more you think they should know it? That I have to go to a scam against them and bring them in and be famous between them and then turn into Baha'i faith, then as a result a lot of people come in and talk, that's not going to happen. That is not the case at all, mister. Lady Bloomfield, asked Abdu'l-Baha that I personally knew the Queen or the King, I don't know. I'm going to go to talk. And I'm going to turn them into the faith. Abdu'l-Baha said, no, do not scam. But if she wanted on her own initiative to go and teach the Queen, that would have been different. Such as Martha Root did that, because teaching is supposed to be right. But particularly, I'm going to teach this person to bring him into the Baha'i faith because I'm going to use his or her power to manipulate the rest of the people to get them into the faith. That is not the way it goes. We're asking friendship with people. During the friendship, exchanges happens. If they like to exchange their ideology with ours and become Baha'i, very welcome. If they didn't, we're still friend. We're not going to cut our friendship with them. Our goal is friendship. Our goal is not to make people Baha'i. No. We only tell them that Baha'i faith makes it easier. It's a catalyst. It makes it easy to become a spiritual. It makes it easy to become friends. It makes it easy to communicate. But that's not our goal. Our plan is not to get a signature from you to make you a Baha'i. If you do that, Abdu'l-Baha's answer is no. But several times he has said that, if a king or a big man or whatever, whoever turns into Baha'i faith, that would help a lot. Could help, he says, a lot. But also may not help. Twice he refused that. Carnegie also, big rich American, wants to manipulate and bring Abdu'l-Baha to his personal audience, and Abdu'l-Baha said no. Because there's no scam, a scheme of any type cannot work. I was just having my poems, it's called the Mathnavi of 5 Elders, actually approved by the Universal House of Justice, by 2 outside readers, Dr. Ali Akbar Tabana in Virginia and Shapur Rasekh in Switzerland, who was very unfair in his comment and very oblivion. He was very oblivious. But anyway, they said, yeah, okay, the book is approved. I could have waited till the book is approved and all the Baha'is, they read it, and then I bring up the eldership. I didn't. Because while I gave my book in India to Mr. Wahidi for publications, I had this vision. Abdu'l-Baha told me, you are an elder, I've told you many times, you have to get up on something. I immediately wrote a letter to Universal Laws of Justice as what's happening, and I sent a letter to Mr. Wahidi. I told him, stop publications of the book. I sent him the money too. Never returned it. Good for him. Let him have it. He's a great guy. So we cannot scam, okay? But in the universe, there is some intelligence embedded, the formulas, that if you get hold of them, you can do a lot of things. In the matter of the spirituality, though, it's very special. It's the willpower. That's all it does. If I can turn and sell you the idea, and you willfully decide to help, God approves of that. But if it's a scam or something, I will immediately know it. It's impossible that I won't know. Very well, I guess we are concluding this session to go to the other topics that Baha'u'llah has in this eternal Mathnavi of his.